Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Pat and Mike Show. We've been talking for the last couple of weeks about asset protection, and I think we get great questions as we continue to educate about this. And so, I think a good topic to talk about this week is for our business owners out there, or maybe not even full-fledged business owners, but people who rent properties, and what asset protection strategies are there for you if renting property, owning a business. Pat, I'm guessing you get this question a lot as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it is a lot of folks who maybe don't consider themselves a small business owner. But even if it's just one property that you own that you're renting out, that is a business. It's generating income. It has liability risks along with it. And making sure that you've got things set up properly to protect yourself and your family is really important there.
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point for this. Is we all have so many families that come in who have a property that maybe they're renting because they bought it at a bad time, and they're not ready to sell it. So for a couple of years, they're going to rent it. And just the liability exposure there when it's in your own name, but renting it to another individual, the cost, the time, the effort of putting in place some type of entity structure, an LLC or whatever it may be, to kind of cut off that liability. Because if something happens to someone, let's say there's a slip and fall on the property, and now there's a lawsuit, you're exposing yourself to personal liability if the property is still owned in your own name.
Right. Yeah. If you own the property and somebody gets hurt there, who are they suing? I mean, they are suing you directly. And that's a big difference from having a corporation or a company, some other entity be the target. And it is kind of, as you were saying there, fairly simple to set up. It to my mind is just sort of the first thing that someone should do if they're renting a property. So maybe we can have a conversation around that and then talk more about either once you have that in place, or people who have sort of more elaborate businesses, either with employees, with other resources, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into that a little bit. And so, in the past, we've talked about asset protection, and that always comes down to ownership and control. There's those two elements that we always need to look at when we're talking about asset protection. And so in this case, we're talking about setting up a business entity like an LLC, which stands for limited can see all the layers of this and how complex it can be.
Mhm.
And add to that, if it's like, let's say it's you own a piece of property or a rental place with someone else. Okay, now it's not just as simple as creating the LLC. Now we need to have what's called an operating agreement that spells out ownership interests. How does this work if someone were to pass away? It's kind of like a will for your business. But those things need to all be spelled out, because I can't tell you how many times we've been in court because things weren't agreed to in advance. And now it's just a fight over money, and we've got families involved, and it just never works out so well.
Definitely. And I want to loop back to the type of trust, because we definitely want to touch on that again.
Mhm.
But that whole succession planning side of things, how is your operating agreement structured? How is your business set up is really, really important. If it's a single member LLC, meaning if it's just, you have a house and it's yours and you want to do with it what you will, it's less important there because you're the only person who has anything to say about it. Doesn't mean it's unimportant, but it's very different than when you've got two or more people involved in any kind of business. This, besides the professional side of this, I have seen this play out in that I was renting space in a business at one point where one of the two co-owners passed away, and his share wound up going to, I think it was a stepson. It was someone else who had never done anything like real estate investment, property management, nothing like it. And the whole thing wound up folding within a matter of months. Unfortunately, I was already on my way out. But the other guy who was involved, really upset by it, and now will not get into business with anyone. He likes to partner with folks. Will not get into business with anyone without having a very clear operating agreement and without having the other person have their planning in place. Simple things, or I shouldn't even say simple, but like these things like a right of first refusal. Right of first refusal just meaning if I own the property with someone else and they pass away, I have the first option to buy out their share before it goes to their kids. And you see a lot of this with friends, family, handshake agreements, where it's like, oh, this is cool. We'll just go in together on property. I mean, I can see myself doing that with my brother. Be like, you know what? Let's just go in 50-50 and we'll run this thing. And that's great. But what if that person passes away? Are you wanting to be in business with whoever their heirs may be? I mean, you see it sometimes where it's all positive. Everyone wants to work together, but maybe the spouse or maybe the kids don't know thing one about the business that they just inherited. I mean, that's not a great position to be in, but you can plan for it. Again, and we say this a lot, this stuff all goes into effect when you're not able to be there anymore. I mean, these might be easy enough issues for you to address if you're standing there, but this comes into play when either, Alzheimer's or stroke, or you've passed away. So making sure that it's very clearly laid out is critical.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you pretty much just said. I meet with so many business owners who are sitting with me because they want to plan the personal side of their affairs. They want a will and trust in the event that, their assets need to pass to the next generation, financial medical power of attorney. That's always top of mind. But then we get to their succession planning, like what's happened, what estate planning have you done for your business? Mm-hmm. And business owners are super guilty of this. Like we just, we're running fast and hot all the time, and we never get to taking care of our own. So I hope this is a good episode for all you business owners out there. If you know someone who owns a business, because this can just as bad as going through probate on your personal side. Mm-hmm. This can be just as bad because you have now people in control of businesses that don't want to be and never thought they were going to be.
For sure. And it's the kind of thing, as you say, that you can avoid, that you can set up. One of the big things is a lot of the underlying documents, like an LLC or something like that. There are form versions of them out there, but they include some really basic language, and they do nothing to address succession planning. One of the better, tends to be the better ones that you see are where like maybe doctors have gone into business together, dentists have gone into business together, and they put in the money to have a corporate structure set up. They hired an attorney who knew what they were doing. They built in that succession planning, the buyout options. Because what does it look like when someone retires? You know, they're like, I'm done. So do they get to sell their interest to everyone? Does it get divided equally? What happens there? Are you allowed to give your share to your kids, or do you have to sell it back to the group? I mean, if those things are not addressed, it can cause really significant issues. And just a lot of the, you know, not to call them out by name, but there are certain online legal document suppliers. Yeah, right. Who do a super basic version of it that is technically an LLC, but doesn't have any of the succession planning, any of those issues addressed in there. And so people set it up and they'll say, well, done with that. Not necessarily. You know, it depends what you want done going forward and in the event of your incapacity or death.
Right. Just like educating on general estate planning, there's so many options out there for an individual as they're doing this kind of planning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's all kinds of like key man insurance. Now, we don't do anything financial on at our firm, but you know, things like buy-sell agreements or key man insurance, where essentially if you were to pass away, there'd be money available to hire someone to take your place. I mean, these are all options. There's so many options, and just getting educated about them is probably a great first step.
Yeah. Well, and on the simpler side of things, so let's say that the only business type asset is a rental property, and maybe you've got a management company or someone who's kind of handling the day to day, and you don't really do a lot with it. You know, it's kind of paying you the monthly income, and you maintain and monitor that. We've got a bunch of families who have that sort of asset who want to leave it to the kids as an ongoing income stream. But how do you do that? The worst conceivable way is to ladybird deed it to all your kids, because now you've got 4 people who, it's like Mike was saying earlier, ownership and control. They don't just control it, they own it. And if you've deeded it to them and 3 of them want to sell and the other one doesn't, tough. They cannot sell. But if you leave it to them in an LLC or you leave it to them in trust, well, then it basically stay there to provide this ongoing income stream. And if they want to sell it, they'll have that option. Or if they want to buy out each other's interests, they'd have that option as well. But instead of just leaving this property with the accompanying liability directly to, you know, the kids, the beneficiaries, what if you left it to them in this corporate trust structure? So they're protected, they've got nothing to worry about, and it can just be that kind of ongoing steady income for them.
Yeah. Everything you're talking about also reminds me of some of the cottage trusts we do. You know, being in Michigan, so many families have up north places that they've been able to utilize during this, you know, well, it's supposed to be staying at home. They can go up north sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's the same point. You know, it's like you have the option to put in place some structure for how does this look? You know, will the trust pay for the utilities? Like, this just causes so much fighting amongst families when this is not laid out, that you can work through this with all your family members up front, and it's very clear about, hey, what if one of the kids doesn't want to be part of the cottage after you pass away? They can, you know, be bought out. Like, there's so many just different things that you can work through that need to be considered.
Absolutely. And similar to that, because I mean, we serve clients from, you know, Lake Michigan to Lake Erie, Huron, all the way up to Superior there. And different people have different interests. I mean, you go up north, you get a lot of the cottage trusts. More on the west side of the state, people have farm property, property that's been in the family. And an awful lot of people who have the farms don't actually work them themselves. They'll rent out the fields to people who grow the crops or graze the cattle. And so if you have that family farm property held in an LLC, held within a trust, that can continue to benefit the family for generations as well. So there's just all these things that you can do to ensure that it's kept together. I think it's pretty striking when you look at any of these properties and then a family tree, and realize that if it just passed by succession without any planning in place, within 2 generations, you've got 15 people owning a share of it, which is one thing if you've got those people who are entitled to a share of the profits, but it's another thing entirely if they all equally own it. Trying to get that many people to row in the same direction is a fairly monumental challenge, and one that we can avoid by proper planning.
Perfect. All right, Pat, I think we've given people enough on business planning, at least to start a conversation, maybe with your family members. We do have some information on our website, rutkowskilawfirm.com. If you wanted to set up a free consultation, feel free to reach out. You can either reach out through our website, rutkowskilawfirm.com, or give us a call at 1-800-ESTATES. But hope you like the content. Please share it and like our Facebook page. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, everyone take care now.